Good evening, everyone. Chris,
Good evening.
Hey, Chris,
Hey, Joe, how are you?
we're good. Hey, John, Happy New Year.
Here we are.
there you go, John.
Thank you. Oops. We have census here. Is Dennis here?
Not yet.
Starting to populate our.
We have Mike, yourself, Chris, me, Joe.
Hey, everyone.
How you doing, Mike?
Good. How about yourself, Joe?
We're good. We're good. Hey, John, I thought you'd like to know, I went out with the seal cruise with the aquarium. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and we saw absolutely nothing.
Oh,
No seals,
not a one?
not one.
So too warm?
When I was working for the aquarium, we would see them in December before Christmas. And then they disappear usually in January, and then we start seeing them showing up again in February. But I was hoping that with the warmer weather that they might have started showing up, but they didn't. But the interesting thing, I don't know if you've been down to Calf Pasture Beach. My wife and I were there yesterday, and I don't know if you know what Brant look like. They look like Canada geese, but they don't have the white stripe on their head.
Oh, okay.
Over 300 were hanging out and far outnumbered the Canada geese. So we might have a change of populations here.
Is that Mother Nature at work, Joe?
Absolutely. Keep us on our toes.
Yeah. Slowly populating here. Let's see. We have Alan. Okay. Chris, John, Jeff. I know Jeff Stedman will running a few minutes late. He was out in New Canaan commission function there. New Canaan, not New Canaan, I'm sorry, with a oh. So you're waiting on Dennis. Well, it's Lori. I know Lori said she had to leave about 8 o'clock. There she is. It's Lori. 1, 2, what do we have here? It's 1,
I count 7.
7. Mike, Alan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who are we missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Yeah, this is the plan review, so it's really not the meeting, is it?
We have a quorum, so
We
we
have a
can
quorum?
do anything we want. It just,
All right, we could do that. I was sort of waiting for the courtesy of Dennis.
sure. Well, I only have 2 minutes after, so 3 minutes after.
Well, we have both agents for our 2 application reviews, Mr. Ryder and Mr. Bajek present. All right. I didn't hear anything from Dennis. Anyone hear from Dennis? No.
I have not. Let me check.
We're gonna have a lot of dead air on that recording.
I just pinged him.
Well, at least we can probably start with our Pledge of Allegiance, as we normally do for commission meetings. Did anyone have available of a flag? No, I don't see it. No? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Well, we might as well, we can get started. All right. You can stand. All right. And, all right, I'll lead off. All right, I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the United
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
Well, actually, this is the role of the secretary, since we are actually, do we have a vice chair? Is it? No, and our secretary, John Crespo, should be directing this meeting here. Anyway, we might as well get started with our application review. We have 2 of our agents that are here to discuss that. The first application is by 36 Split Rock Road. I think that's Mr. Bajek's application, as he's the agent, which is it's for an existing structure that was scheduled to be authorized, and includes a 2 foot by 5 foot, 24 foot aluminum ramp, a 9 foot by 12 timber float with a float stop system consisting of 4x4 timber legs with 4x9 skids on the bottom on each side of the float. And I think this was already in place, and I think, Jim, you are going to discuss it's an after the fact application that we have in front of us, right?
That's right. This application is essentially to clean up a notice of violation that was issued back in 2015. And that resulted in the filing of a COP application in 2015 for a different configuration than what's there now. The original COP permit was for a 4 foot by 37 foot pier with a 3 by 6 foot T-head deck on the ends, and to retain the existing seawall. What happened is after that COP, well, during that time frame in 2015, Mrs. Zerzan's husband, Anthony Velez, was diagnosed with a very onerous bone cancer. And what Mrs. Zerzan did, and she was tending to her husband for 2 years from that point. And I guess he really loved being down by the water. And Mrs. Zerzan, without thinking, changed the configuration of the dock. So instead of having a pier, she changed it to a ramp and a float, which is what the subject of this application is. We went through a lot of details with this with DEEP, and they agreed that we could retain the ramp and float, but we would have to apply to have it retained as a COP application. So that's where we are now.
Well, as you know, Jim, that we usually don't respond. Usually I should respond, but we consider after the fact applications. However, this has been reviewed by the DEP, and I believe there was a fine issued.
Well, I guess you can call it a fine. They called it something else other than a fine. It was there was a concrete slab that was in the water.
That had to be removed, right?
And that had to be removed. So the cost of removing it was essentially the fine, $2,300.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, as far as the commission would be concerned, that, we certainly have no comment on that other than that we would like to be notified, at least from the DEP standpoint, and we'll sort of send a letter in that regard about, any violations or any infractions with regard to, to any applications that were submitted to them. As I said, we sort of heard from this sort of later, not sooner. And so that's perhaps I can only say is our only comment to this application, because the DEP has already worked with you for remediation on that. So we can't really call it consistent with the harbor management plan. That's
okay, and I guess, I guess that would be acceptable to us. We're required to send a copy of
right.
every COP application to the Harbor Commission, but there's actually no requirement for the commission to respond back to DEEP.
Well, we will send a letter to the DEEP, as I said, as we've done in the past, regarding our need to be informed, certainly, prior to or any alteration in the application procedure. So, so this would be considered that. So as I said, we won't indicate that it's consistent with the plan, but we will indicate to the DEP that any violations that would come forward before the commission should be indicated. So
Okay.
any comments or issues that they would like to bring in?
Shouldn't we, it's a new COP, so shouldn't the Harbor Management Commission sign off on that?
Well, we could sign off on it as far as, that we received it, but we can't really indicate that it's consistent or inconsistent with the plan. That's not, as I said, we usually indicate that we don't sign off on after the fact, sort of an after the fact application, which has always been our policy on that. But as I said, we will.
How far after the fact is this? This just came up in 2015, but when?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, when was it permitted initially?
It wasn't.
There was a permit issued in 2015
For
for a different configuration.
not the
And,
not the current configuration.
I believe
Yes.
in 2016, she actually had this existing configuration installed.
Right, so it was a pier, it was the permit, it wasn't for a float and a ramp.
Right.
Right.
And where'd the concrete come from? That's,
I don't know. It was just there. Maybe it was there when she bought the property. We're not sure, but Deep didn't see it, that it served the purpose. So they, insisted that it be removed.
Jeff, you have,
I'm sorry, I was late, but we talked about this, Jim, with Mr. Zavoy at Deep to get some of the background of it. But just to respond to Alan, I think the commission should respond. That's the purpose of providing the COPs to the commission.
well, we'll respond, but not in the manner of which we normally do, and that it being.
Well, but conceivably, and I'm not saying it in this instance, but conceivably, you could find a COP application inconsistent with the plan or consistent.
Mhm.
In this instance, it's a correction of a violation.
Violation.
So as I understand it, that there was a consent order that the owner signed with Deep, and that consent order involved a penalty, which was to pay for the removal of the concrete. And I'm sorry if I missed any of this.
Yeah, right.
So the harbor management plan has a policy, of course, that there shouldn't be work in the harbor management area that doesn't have permits. And if there are violations that are identified, if the violation occurred prior to the harbor management plan, we'd look at it differently than a violation that occurs after the harbor management plan.
Right, right.
And if it occurs after the harbor management plan, we'd object to it unless there are compelling reasons otherwise. So in this instance, after talking with Mr. Zavoy, the thought is that we could say this is a suggestion, have no objection with the understanding that the applicant was required did pay a penalty in effect to remove
Right.
the concrete, and that it's determined that it doesn't have an adverse impact on coastal resources. But we certainly want to make clear that we don't support after the fact permits for violations unless there are compelling
Reasons to do so.
The other thing would be to, again, request, if that's the right word, of DEP, that when there are notices of violation in Norwalk, in the harbor, that the Harbor Commission gets a copy of those notices when they're sent to the violator.
Right, right.
In this instance, it doesn't seem that there's a adverse impact of what's being asked, but we don't want to set a principle of agreeing to after the fact permits for things that are built without the permits.
Right.
Well, it's not so much something that was built without a permit, but something that wasn't built to the letter of the permit and it's being corrected.
It was built originally without a permit, but it predates 1995. So in
Right.
2015 or whenever, DEP allowed them to, in effect, do something to it, but they didn't do it. They didn't do it accordingly. So now they're asking, for another COP, actually to do a little bit different than what they were approved to do in 2015, but DEP doesn't think it's an issue.
All right, well, under those circumstances, we can certainly move forward with this application with those remarks in mind. And so we'll make comment, we'll get a letter out to the DEP with that regard. Does anyone have any further comments? Are all those in favor with going forward with the remarks that we've already made regarding that application? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? You object, Dennis?
I'm abstaining. I know these folks personally. I used to live on that street, so I'll abstain for,
Okay, one abstention.
yeah.
Chris? Dennis, you're silent, you're muted.
This technology is getting the best of me, I think. I don't know what the problem is tonight like it was last time, but.
Dennis, it's an easy fix. If you push down the space bar, the big little barn down in the beginning,
Yep.
you tap it and you're able to talk. And if you release it, you'll mute yourself again.
Okay.
Oh, that's a quick way to do it. Instead of, reaching for you tap that long bar, the space bar.
Oh, for the mute? Okay, okay.
Yeah, it'll unmute you and then mute you again if you let it go.
All right, so we're into the application review.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Dennis, we said the pledge and started the meeting prior to you, and I
Thank you,
apologize.
I'm sorry.
I thought maybe in the interest of time, we'd move forward.
That's fine.
Thank you. All right, our next application is 2 Nathan Hale Drive, which is a pre-submission application. This application is from Mr. John Erdman, proposes to remove a 2-foot by 9-foot pierhead from the fixed pier and install a new railing in the gap, retain, and let's see, that's right, in the gap, and then retain the existing seawall along the southern side of the peninsula and the riprap along the shoreline, and store one 12-inch diameter timber pier into the substrate adjacent to the existing dock float. And I think Mr. Ryder from Land Tech was here to give us an overview of that particular project.
Good evening. Yes, Tom Ryder with Land Tech, and that basically he has, Mr. Pinto has stated that is actually the summary. There's an existing, there's an existing structure, existing dock, which is permitted. The owner wants to put in another pile just off of the float. The rest of it is just basically housekeeping. There's a stone wall along the shoreline that was never permitted. It's been there for quite some time. So we wanted to clean that up, and the DEP had pointed out that there is a section of pier that is wider than 4 feet. It's a little pier head. I think it was probably used for fishing. Scaling fish long time ago. So the DEP had wanted that removed, and so he's removing that. So it's really pretty minor what we're asking for, but we are filling out a complete application for the DEP for review. And as part of that process, we are in front of you tonight to get your sign off on it that what we're asking for is compliant with the harbor management plan.
Well, this is a pre-application, Tom, and as you said, we, if the commission feels that you can move forward with the application, we will indicate that.
Mhm.
But then we review our right to review the application in its formal process. When we,
Yep, that's right.
is any comment or questions on?
You have a drawing that you could show on the?
I can share if you'd like.
On the screen.
Yeah, I think Amelia would need to. Is Amelia there? Give him share process.
Yeah, you should have permission to share it. Okay, perfect.
I could do it too.
There you go.
Okay, so, well, just to zoom out a little bit, I guess here is Wilson Cove. You're all familiar with Wilson Cove. The property is where the star is. Then we go down to the property here. Basically, this is the property. Here is the peninsula here. There's a wall basically right here, just a stone area right there. And then there is a structure here with a float, and right by, well, I guess where the little finger is where they want to put another pile right here. And I'll show you that on this plan here. So again, here's this, sorry, here is the wall here. Here is the fixed pier with a ramp and a float. Here is the location of the proposed timber pile. And I can zoom in here, and this is basically a little bump out here that, again, it was like a fish scaling staging area that's too wide for the current fixed pier. It is not allowed by DEP. So they're asking him to remove it, and he said no problem. And so we're filling out an application for that. So there is basically the plan view of what's going on.
Tom, does the applicant own that whole peninsula there? Where is the applicant's property in the property lines?
Property line is outlined in red.
Outlined in red, so there's no issue with littoral rights or conflicts with any neighbors?
No, because it's on the northern side of the peninsula, which is clearly within his.
That's my point, yeah.
Right. Yep. I'll go back to the detailed sheet.
So the proposed 12-inch timber pile is shown up there. That doesn't,
And if put that in perspective again, that would be right there. Ish.
why is there a pile away from the dock?
He has a longer vessel and he wanted to secure it properly.
Oh, so it's just like a stern line thing? Okay. Okay.
And he's out of, well, it's not navigable waters. Yeah, there is.
Yeah. It's a fairway. There's not an actual channel there, but
Any of the commissioners have any other comment? Concerns? They said we will indicate the applicant's ability to move forward with the formal application, that we review our right to review the application when it's submitted again. Any other questions or any issues? All those in favor of that proposal, will you raise your hand?
I,
Aye. Any noes? Abstentions this time? No? So we'll move forward to that application. And I think that comes to a close, Dennis.
Well,
Or,
with that, I thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Tom.
Goodbye.
Bye.
That concludes it, John? for,
That's it, but we have for application review.
Okay. No standing items to. discuss?
No, we're still holding course with Eversource. We're still holding course with all the other issues that are facing the Walk Bridge project right now. Everything's sort of sitting in abeyance, and also in our crawl, to be honest with you.
As usual.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John. I have no chairman's report. I spoke to Harbor Master Lavallo, and I don't believe he's here tonight. And under my report, I'll just explain what I had met with him, and I'll explain that under my report. Jeff, do you want to say anything now?
For my report,
Yes.
yeah, if you bear with me just a bit.
Jeff, you got your email that I sent you, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
the first thing I'd like to mention is members of the commission now did not know, except for John and Dennis, the former chairman, Jack Callahan, who did a wonderful job as chairman, and he was on the commission for a number of years. Unfortunately, we learned, a week ago or 2 weeks ago or so, he had passed away. When he left the commission, the last I saw him, and he lived near me in West Norwalk for many years. He was in an assisted living facility on the Post Road in Darien, and I visited him. He was suffering from Parkinson's disease, but his mind was very sharp, and he was following what the commission was involved with, and really enjoyed talking about it. And then one time I called back, and he had left, and they said they were not at liberty to tell me where he went. Recently, I was able to talk with one of his sons. There was no obituary in the Norwalk Hour, and that's why we couldn't find happened to him. But he passed away several years ago, and I just wanted to recognize all that he did. And I know it's funny to hold something up in front of the screen, but I have some of his old notebooks. When he came on the commission, he was assigned to the East Basin Committee. And that's when we were trying to resolve the issues with the encroachments in the East Basin Navigation Project, and achieve a realignment, working with the congressional delegation. And Jack visited, this was his first assignment, visited with all of the property owners there. There were 12 that he visited. And so this is one of his notebooks with all of his notes, and everyone agreed to the realignment program and the benefit assessment, which was simply to recover the commission's expenses for all the surveys that we did. And I won't go into what eventually happened to that, but he was also very much involved with the dredging, all the pre-work with the dredging. But anyway, I just mentioned because he was another person who will be much missed, and his interest in being chair and serving on the commission was to serve the public interest. That's what his goal was. And when I talked with his son said that how much he enjoyed his, contributing to the city and to the harbor, and contribute. He wasn't an original member of the commission, but he was on many terms and as chair. So I just wanted to mention that, because we've lost so many of the people who contributed so much, and John Romano last year. But if you will allow me, I think I'm going to write some sort of a statement about Jack, and and the other past commission members to submit to the press, because there was never an obituary about Jack in the hour. But I just wanted to mention that and to tell you that everyone who knew Jack Callahan respected him, and that's my thank you for letting me say that.
Jeff, thank you for doing that. I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, very much so. He came on the commission at the same time as Pat Clark. Many of you don't know, maybe you do know her, and also Henry Paloux. And they were essentially started the application review committee as a separate committee of the commission. So review these applications in committee form rather than with the full commission. So that's my sort of inadequate tribute to Jack, but we'll do something more for him.
Well, Jeff, didn't we discuss some years back of having some sort of plaque placed in the voting center at the Donovan?
About recognizing past commissioners,
Past,
we should talk about that maybe some more.
Yeah,
And you remember when the Harbor Management Association was established, he was so interested in that. And remember the Harbor of the Year award one
Right.
time when we received that many years ago. And
I still have the reviews of that.
yeah, and pictures. But anyway, that not to be. Well, anyway, that's one thing one topic I wanted to mention.
Thank you.
The other has to do with the legislative initiative to uphold the authorities of the Harbor Management Commission on a statewide basis of all harbor management commissions. And I think Mike had mentioned his connection with perhaps the city's legislative delegation to Hartford. But as you know, in December, the Supreme Court denied the town of Greenwich's petition to review the appellate court decision that essentially ruled that a harbor commission has no authority to review state applications, and a recommendation of the Harbor Commission is of no weight unless the recommendation is spelled out ahead of time in the harbor management plan. So that ended the judicial process for dealing with that. And a number of towns were waiting until that process played itself out to then talk about a legislative remedy. And thanks to the mayor of New London and their legislators, this was not last Friday, the Friday before was the last day that placeholder bills legislation could be submitted for consideration during this legislative session. So the mayor of New London, who's got many harbor management issues to deal with, as you know, the state pier work is ongoing there and some other things. He had the initiative to work with the legislators, and we worked on a placeholder bill for the purpose of amending the Connecticut Harbor Management Act, not to do anything substantially different, but just to clarify the long established authorities of harbor commissions, including reviewing applications to deep. So we put in that placeholder legislation. It was introduced by Representative Nolan from New London. And now today, and other commissions already know of this, Stamford met with its legislators. But today, John, on behalf of the Harbor Management Association, sent out a legislative alert as well as a background statement on why this is important, and also a copy of the introduced bill to the Environment Committee. So what we've learned from in Stamford was in Fairfield, that important thing now is for the legislators from the different towns to contact their legislators to urge the Environment Committee to take up this bill. But time is of the essence. And I know I'm talking too much again, but here's the example of why this is important, and how the impact of those court decisions has already been felt, especially by us in Norwalk. Because we worked for 7 years to review the DOT plans for the walk bridge. And throughout that time, again, to serve the public interest, we provided recommendations and comments throughout the whole process. And we retained a water quality scientist to analyze all the DOT's turbidity data. And then when it came to the public hearing, we submitted, again, a very thoughtful statement of recommendations and comments. that the hearing officer in effect dismissed and described as the same as general public comments, that the Harbor Commission had no standing, no special standing in that Walk Bridge matter, and its comments would be treated as general public comments. And then she also, and if she was here, I'd say the same thing, made the less than defensible comment that one of the reasons she didn't consider our comments, and she referenced the court case, the Superior Court case. She said we had no recommendations in the harbor management plan specific to turbidity monitoring during the Walk Bridge construction, as if, 10 years ago, we could have figured that out. But we had plenty of other comments about protecting water quality and monitoring during construction projects and avoiding turbidity. So I think it's just absurd to think that in order for our recommendations to have any weight, it has to be spelled out ahead of time. And so this legislation, and I think if we could get DEEP to work with us, we could come up with something that's agreeable to both DEEP and to the harbor commissions. But last thing I'll say, it doesn't just affect Norwalk, it's every town. And now the focus has to be on getting the Environment Committee to take this bill up.
Jeff, from the past history that we've never had any help from the DEP in remediating that. When I've talked with Brian Thompson and several other people, they are not going to yield on that, Jeff. So I think we're just going to need our legislative pull to maybe help us through this.
Well, all we're asking is for the legislation to reflect what DEEP has already approved. In
Exactly. So DEP is not going to bend at all because they're going to have to admit they're wrong.
They had to defend themselves in the case that.
And they're not going to admit they're wrong. Right. But yet the statement that we put into that whole is already put into their, they made it, well, that they put together a mock harbor management plan. And in that harbor management plan, they clearly state what we had indicated in our requirements for reviewing applications, that we do have the jurisdiction to review state applications.
And that the recommendations that the commission makes have to be considered by DEEP as having some special.
That's correct.
Decision.
So there's a contradiction of terms that I think the new people that come on board of the DEP, they start making up their own rules, and this is why we need clearly established legislation against.
But if we be positive about this, and DEEP would be willing to work with us, we could come up with the language that would reflect what the practice has always been and what DEEP approved.
The language is already there, Jeff. The language is already there. The language is there. How do we?
That's my
spiel
on that.
Right.
So I guess the question is now that can we have some communication with Norwalk's legislators?
Well, that's what we're going to need to do. All the other commissions are doing the same. So we need support from our. That's correct. From our own delegation. That's correct.
And then if you don't mind me giving another part of the report, we're still waiting on the grant for the street end study that was approved by the Connecticut Port Authority, but has not been allocated. The monies have not been allocated by the Connecticut Bond Commission. So we had hoped that those funds would be allocated at the Bond Commission meeting in last December, but they didn't. It wasn't put on the agenda. The next meeting of the Bond Commission, we were told then, would be at the end of January, and hopefully that would be on the agenda there, but it's not because the Bond Commission meeting is canceled. And part of the reason, I think, has to do with the ongoing issues with the State Pier project and the Connecticut Port Authority requesting additional funds. And so we don't know what the future is going to be of those ship programs. Our grant is relatively small compared to a grant to Stanford for almost $2 million for a dredging project and $500,000 to, another town. So maybe the next step here is to write the commission to write to the Office of Policy and Management, which is what we were advised to do, which sets the agenda for the Bond Commission at the direction of the governor, and urge that this small harbor grant program be continued. And that our grant be put, we spent a lot of time on this, and we hope that it doesn't fall by the wayside or get caught up with the issues in the State Pier project. But
How can we help you with this, Jeff? Is there a letter we can write? Is there someone that we could reach out to? It just seems like we're kind of stuck in, nowhere's land here.
yeah, I think what the Harbor Commission could do is, and Stanford is going to do the same thing, and so is Norwich and Stratford. And maybe we could think of a way of combining all, one letter from signed by all of those towns. But we were directed by the project manager at the Port Authority to communicate directly with the Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management. But now, I don't know how more to deal with that, but we certainly want to emphasize that we want that program to continue and not fall by the wayside.
I mean, it was an amazing accomplishment to get those funds, and for all of a sudden now for it to be dangling in front of us and we can't grab it is just insane.
Almost $1 million from that program went to rebuilding the visitor stock. And when the Port Authority was formed, we spent a lot of time, almost more than half a year, in meetings to urge or that the legislation enable the Port Authority to provide funds to all of the harbors, not just the 3 deep water ports. And that was the origin of this SHIP program. But I guess if we can try to get together with the other towns and maybe have a joint letter that's signed by the chairman of all of these different towns. I don't know if that would be more effective than individual letters, or.
Do we know who those heads are?
Pardon me?
Do we know who those heads are or how to contact them?
Oh, yes. Yes, because this last round, there were 8 towns that had approved grant applications, and Stanford had 3. So that there were 10 projects that were approved by the Port Authority for over $5 million total. But the Port Authority was authorized by the legislature for a 5-year program of $5 million a year for 5 years in grants. And then they had $9 million left over from their previous round. So there was a substantial amount of money, but when we inquired after the December meeting of the bond commission that didn't include these grants, we were told, or I wasn't, but the fellow who did inquire at the Office of Policy and Management, that just because they were authorized to spend the money didn't mean they had to allocate it. And I think the State Pier project is a big part of that, with the ongoing investigations of the Port Authority and the anticipated request of another $50 million or so for the project. But if we could just separate that away from this other program, I think anyway, that's.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have an action plan. There's something to be doing something. It's great to be talking like this, but we ought to have somebody leading the wagons and driving forward. Because otherwise, it's great for us to chat like this and have it recorded, but it doesn't accomplish very much.
Jeff, I think numbers is going to say something. I think we should do individual letters, because if you send up 24 individual letters, I really think that opens their eyes a little bit. That's what I'm thinking.
Well,
I agree with you on that, Dennis. That's worked in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That's easy to do. We can draft a letter to send to.
I mean, all the letters could say the same thing, and they won't even know the difference.
Sure.
Well, we could draft a letter, and I have the addresses of all the commission chairs that are involved. We'll send those out to them with a suggested wordage.
Right. I think that's a better approach.
And also the significance of this is we're looking ahead to the reconfiguration, if that's the right word, of the Veterans Park Marina in East Norwalk, the city project. And if we would have applied for construction funds for that, if the city had the permit, we would have applied for that last year and probably would have gotten funding for it, and then that would have been hanging, in abeyance.
Yeah.
So our understanding is once the city gets the permit for that, the source of perhaps 80% of the funding would come from this small harbor grant program.
That was for the shellfish resource section, wasn't that right, Joe?
No, the East Norwalk Marina, John.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Veterans Park Marina.
Right, that's right. I'm sorry. That's right. Hi, Joe.
John and Jeff, just something to toss out there, following on Dennis's comment about numbers. I don't know if anybody has looked at it, but over 56% of the population lives in towns with tidal waters. Now, I don't know if all those towns have harbor commissions, but they do have tidal waters, so anything that goes on along the shore could impact them. Jeff, I can get you a list of those towns if you'd like that.
We have all that, Joe. And
Okay.
so there's 27 harbor management plans. There are 27 or 26 that are in place along.
But did you
along the shore.
realize it impacts that many populations, 56% of the populations in
No.
this state?
No, that's certainly a significant number from my
Yeah, it is.
point. Yeah, well, that was what our comment was with regard to, maintaining small ports and harbors. When it came down to funding through the Port Authority, and actually in that they were only going to fund just the three major harbors of New Haven, London, and Bridgeport. And I said in several letters that we've already commented from the Connecticut Harbor Management Association that the combined efforts of the commissions from Stonington to Greenwich probably had a little bit more weight as far as tax dollars going up to the state than those three ports. So, I don't know if they would. And
Jeff, do you have your hand up? Jeff?
Joe has his hand up.
Yours is up too.
I took it down.
Why is my hand up? No, mine's not up.
Okay,
Weird.
you jumped squares.
Dennis, I sent you the email regarding that court decision, as legislation and things. I said, if you wanted to share that or read it over and share it with other members of the commission, that's your call.
Can I suggest you send it to the commission?
That was directed to you.
I understand that.
Yeah.
You'd like me to send it to the
Well,
rest?
I'm not just saying, if you felt it was for the.
I briefly read it. I didn't.
Yeah, but when you read over it, and then if you want to get that to other members of the commission for their purview, that's
You'd
certainly.
like me to read it?
Well, if we have the time, I guess you want, but there's
Right.
quite a bit there.
Yeah, there is. Okay. Dear Commission Chairs, the establishment and mission of the Connecticut Harbor Management Commission, CHMA, is to share information and facilitate coordination to address issues of common interest to its members. I apologize if you currently are not the chair or your municipality, as I am working from a continuous involving list. This email is to alert all harbor commissions in the state of Connecticut about the recent court decision to undermine and basically diminish the effectiveness and practical application of the municipal harbor management plans. Please share the information contained in the 3 attachments with your fellow commission members. It is the considered opinion of the CHMA board that the proposed amendments to the Harbor Management Act will be necessary at this time to clarify and confirm well-established and recognized harbor management practices developed pursuant to the act over many years, and to maintain the effectiveness and practical application of the municipal harbor management plans. In brief, the effectiveness and practical application of the board submits is otherwise significantly diminished by the 2 recent Connecticut court decisions. The January 2021 Superior Court decision in the matter of Susan Cohen versus State. Legislative action is necessary to alter the course that these decisions will greatly undermine and in the intent originally put forth by the framer, Senator Doc Gunther, in 1984 Harbor Management Act. With regards, John Thomas Pinto. Now there's attachments. I think I'll just send it out, or have Amelia sent it out to everyone. So you have the attachment, if that's all right. Lori? You're muted. Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, Dennis, I'd appreciate actually if you'd send the whole thing out, what you just read along with the attachments.
Right.
And then the other point I want to make is just to close the circle on this conversation is go back to what Alan suggested, which is what's the action item? And I believe we discussed that Jeff would write a letter to the Office of Policy and Management asking us to be put on the next agenda. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I think that sounds like a good action plan. Jeff, sorry.
That's the action plan for the small harbor grants. What Dennis was reading is the, we need an action plan now for dealing with this legislative change.
Yeah.
The most important thing is we somehow bring our state delegation into this. So
Right,
Two separate action
Two
items.
separate items,
Right.
Lori, yeah.
right.
And we also have our Facebook page for the Harbor Commission, which has, about 400 followers last time I looked, which I think is a useful place to put the action plan into something you can present to the public in maybe text form,
Yes.
but just get the word out that way.
That's a good idea too.
Okay, any other comments? Lori?
I'm just wondering if there's a sample letter that we can send to our local legislators asking them to appeal to the Environmental Commission or whatever it's called. If there's a sample, then maybe we could all support with writing letters.
I think somehow,
Jeff, I see you're laughing.
No, I'm not laughing. I'm saying that that's a very good idea.
yes,
And
we'd like to meet with them first, you know.
no, but
Okay.
having a sample letter, but why don't we work on that and have something for next? I certainly wasn't laughing, Lori, at the idea. I was laughing at
That's exactly what we'd like to do.
Yeah, we can work on that over the weekend and have something for Monday.
Pretty much what is in the documents that we send around, Lori, is the information that would be input in that letter.
Yeah, but making that a little bit, there's a one-page summary of the issue. And-
Right.
But maybe even condensing that more with respect to a letter to the legislators. But
Yeah.
that would be good, not just for Norwalk, but for all the
All
towns,
the
for
towns, yeah.
someone to do.
Well, all the towns have that letter,
Yeah,
or hopefully we'll get that letter.
I think it would be useful for the commissioners to all get that letter. Or
Yes.
Yes,
when it's the first time it's sent out, because it's
yes, that's correct.
the only information the rest of us have on this is what I read in the Hour in the paper about the state pier project and all the trouble down there or over there. And what we discussed at this meeting, and I'm able to read and very interested in all this. It's just that we don't get, as commissioners, don't get a lot of that information.
the Fairfield Commission has a member who was a former newspaper person. And he's put together press releases on several projects of interest in Fairfield and Southport. So the intent was to put together another press release on this matter having to do with the Harbor Management Authority that would hopefully be picked up in the newspapers as well. So that's something that we're trying to work on for next week. Facebook, yeah.
John, do you have something to say?
Oh, me?
Yeah, should this letter be posted as an attachment for the next with the minutes? The letter that you're going to send out, Dennis?
It could be. I don't see why not.
So it's a matter of public information.
Okay, yeah, once you get it,
Yeah, I'll do that.
attach it. Any other comments, questions, et cetera? Okay, we'll move on. I don't know if Steve, under Shellfish Commission, Steve Bardish is here. I don't believe so. Jeff?
You're probably tired of hearing me talk, but I don't know if Steve was coming, but I went, or I attended the meeting this past Saturday in New Haven of the statewide meeting of statewide shellfish commissions that was put on. So Steve couldn't go and he asked if I could go. So it was attended by harbor management shellfish commissions from throughout the state. And the meeting was put on or organized by the Bureau of Aquaculture and also the University of Connecticut's Sea Grant program. And it was quite informative. And I mentioned just on behalf of the Shellfish Commission, their concern with projects that would involve dredging in natural shellfish beds and the other commissions also talked about the concerns they had in reviewing new applications for docks and piers that would either interfere with shellfishing or again, involve dredging so that's a common interest among not just harbor commissions, but shellfish commissions. And I think the shellfish commissions, and I didn't mention it at the meeting, we should also be aware of this harbor management legislation that we're talking about, because the recommendations of a harbor management commission can serve to support and advance shellfish objectives as well. So I was thinking, John, that we might want to send your notice to all the harbor commissions. The Bureau of Aquaculture has an email list of all the shellfish commissions as well.
Okay, we can get in touch with Dave Carey then. Yeah,
They might be willing to do that, but
good point. Very good point.
thank you.
Okay, we have the committee reports, and I'll give the Mooring and Harbor Safety Committee report. Renewal applications for 2023 season started January 1st of 2023. The committee will monitor and address and start up any issues that and concerns. An email communication was sent explaining the procedures to renew each application for this season. I met with Harbor Master Bruce Lavallo to review applications and establish procedures for this season. And I spoke with him earlier, and he was pretty much going to talk about that as well. And he apologizes for not being here. Under harbor safety, the committee is not aware of any issues or concerns regarding harbor safety at this time. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Hey, guys, just Norwalk PD. There was discussion about getting some no wake buoys for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I don't know what the status of that is. We did talk about it, to be honest with you. If somebody knows, please jump in. Jeff?
You know, I talked with Bruce and I promised that I would contact the DEEP boating division. The person is Yolanda Cooley. And we talked about what's required to apply for the application to place these buoys. And I'm told that the first thing that you need to do is to have a local regulation that the buoys are intended to provide guidance or to help enforce. And we looked in the city code, and there is a regulation about the no wake in the inner harbor. So the question is, where would they be placed? And we have to put together on a GIS based map the locations, and the application form is quite simple to do. But I didn't get a chance to get back to Bruce before the meeting tonight. So maybe Sergeant Bisceglie knows more about the status of this now, but we seem to think it was a straightforward process, but we need to get DEEP's approval as to where they would be placed and a permit to place them.
Gotcha. I can look into that. We have some ideas as far as where we want to put them. And I can talk to Bruce and try to coordinate that. I was more curious if the funding for the buoys got approved or where you guys stood on that aspect of it, but I'll talk to Bruce to follow up.
Did we have it in our budget? Alan?
Not that I know of. We don't have, we've not had an estimate on the cost or anything like that. And that's kind of where we would start with that. I have a question too. The existing, like the speed buoys and things that we already have, are those are all approved by DEEP?
So as far as I know, we just kind of put them wherever we put them. We're down to like 4 that actually are functioning right now. So that's why we're trying to get a few more from you guys as well.
Do you have any idea what the cost is per unit with anchor and all the hardware tackle?
I don't have it in front of me. I sent that stuff to Bruce. I didn't include the chain and stuff because I didn't have that at the time. But Bruce has the info on the actual cost of the buoys that we were looking into.
Yeah, we should just get that to me. We can see if we can find, how much we have that we can contribute to that right now at the beginning of the season, which I think is important to get people trained, as soon as they start boating in June or May or whenever.
Yeah, I was hoping to drop them in like probably mid-April or so to kind of get everything going on that, and just so we again, that signage is out there early so people kind of just get accustomed to seeing it. But I'll get with Bruce and I'll kind of try to follow up on where he is with that, and then I'll get those numbers to him and to you guys to try to figure out what you guys can help us out with, because I have some money budgeted that I can manage, but again, if we can get a couple extra, I think that would be beneficial to everybody.
And your budget is Marine Police, is that correct?
Correct. So it would probably come out of that or the PD operations budget. But if we can get something through the Harbor Commission, that would also be helpful to sort of offset that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have some money we can contribute.
We can allocate.
And I'd suggested before that there should be one put in the Village Creek area to delineate the no wake zone, which is the southern tip of Hoyt Island. A lot of people, water ski and wakeboard in there and buzz around, but it's a no wake zone north of at the southern tip of Hoyt Island, and according to the harbor management plan.
Yeah, that's one of the spots I wanted to put. I wanted to put one there, one large one in the East Channel, one large one in the West Channel, Middle Passage, and then up near Oyster Bend too. People come ripping through there a lot,
Yeah.
and we get a lot of complaints up that way as well.
Great.
That's all I had. Thanks, guys.
Very good. Thank you, Justin. Any other comments regarding this? Okay, finance, Al, Kibbe?
Sure.
I know you sent out the financial report and
Yeah, I sent out a report. I tried to do that early, so if anyone has questions, they can, prepare them or have a look and get organized for that. I can reiterate what I said. I did learn that our fiscal year is the calendar year for the commission. I don't know if that makes any difference. It's a lot of work we do because we have to sort of interface with the city on a January to December basis and a July to June basis. So it's pretty easy to do with Excel, I guess. Is what how I'll leave that. We did get our grant applied for our 22-23 grant applied to our account. It's $24,000. It was approved for last year. I had to meet with the CFO and the BET budget and estimate board, of budget estimate and taxation with our request for the 23-24 year. They approved we asked for 20,000 for that year because we're expecting to add some revenue from transit moorings, and it just seems like that's it was a good thing to do to say, well, we're increasing our fees and we're going to have some transit mooring revenue, and we'll going to back off on our dependence on the city just a little bit. The finance people were very happy with that, and as I think I sent a note out that the Henry Dashowitz, who is the CFO of the city, is a really interesting guy, but he came from Long Island before he was in Norwalk, so he's very well aware of the importance of the harbor and the harbor revenue and what the harbor activity brings into the city or the town, just in terms of activity and spending of outside money. So he's very much on our side, and I thought that was very pleasant. Do you guys have it? The only place where I'm a little confused and I need some help from someone who knows about the program is the water quality items, the interns, where the money for that comes from, and what the whole Earth thing is, the harbor, Earthwatch Harbor thing. These are invoices that come to us, but I really don't understand why they're and what they are. I know, Jeff, you were going to meet with somebody at the health department, I think, about that. And I don't think we need to do it now, but it's just that the bills come and it comes out of our money, and I'm just not clear what it is. You're muted, Jeff.
Joe and I both met with the new director of the Harbor Watch program, that's the program we've been asking questions about for a long time. And she was quite forthcoming and said we talked with, she explained the program and the amount that is provided by the health department. But she was willing to have additional, a more formal discussion with us. And I'm sorry, I don't have all the notes, Joe. Do you remember, she talked about the monies that, what they use the money for, which is partly to fund the interns that collect the samples. But I'm not, we have a good relationship now, Alan, that we didn't have before, I think is fair to say. And we can get more information on the specifics of where that money is going.
It also goes to interns as well as the testing equipment itself. They use a Millipore system, so they have disposable Petri dishes, they have membrane filters, they have nutrient agar they have to get, and then they also have, I don't know if they get their autoclaves certified every year, but there are a lot of expendables that go on with the actual testing equipment.
But we also talked about the need to see a product or a report and have a report on what they've learned and what they've done with the
Correct.
money
And the
that's been provided to them.
Yeah, I don't think we have to have a discussion about all the details right now. I just want to put out that we really we should know exactly what we're spending, and our expenditure is kind of crept up year over year, which I just don't understand why, and why the health department's number went down. I've talked to the health department and they don't know why it went down. So we just need to have whoever's works on those things. We need to clarify what the process is and what our piece is of all that.
Well, we used to share those expenses, Alan, with the Shellfish Commission.
Yes.
There's we get $3,000 this year. Last year it was $5,000 from the health department, and they don't, and we just don't know exactly why. I don't understand or know why the amount changes. So we just need whoever's in kind of driving the bus for that program just needs to let me know, or let the commission know what's.
We always agreed on one fixed budget, and that's what they would draw from.
Well, I don't know who is agreeing on budgets now, or who's receiving finance requests. The money just comes and goes and out of the account. So we need to know what we're contributing is what it is. It's how much we're going to put into this, and
well,
so we have
in the past, Alan, what they would do is, I know the people at Harbor Watch, they would send us the bill that would equal the amount that we had intended to provide them, and then the treasurer would then just reimburse them for that amount.
Well, we didn't get any bill last year or the year before, I don't think so.
And that's what's happening now, but that's what we were doing.
It's just out of the blue, and I don't know and it's not clarified exactly what it's supposed to be going on that I know of. So we really need to have an outline of what the program is and what budget we're offering, or what we're offering out of our budget.
That's what Joe had mentioned, is the funding goes to pay for the interns,
I understand,
travel expenses and equipment, agar, et cetera, and we would get a bill from them that was the fixed amount that we would indicate as how much.
What we're getting now is the actual payroll amounts for the two water quality interns.
And that's different than
So we need to know I don't know what they're paid. Obviously, if their pay is going to go up, so the budget's going to go up, or the expenditure will go up. We just need to. I don't want to hold this meeting up with this. We just need to sort out what it is and what we're supposed to be paying, what they're supposed to charge from our account. So we can do that. I haven't. The other budget item we have in there that we're kind of carrying money for is the Harbor Masters enclosure for the Harbor Masters boat. The Shellfish Commission has got their money allocated based on the estimate we had. I'm after Bruce to see if he's gotten that yet. I'm just hoping it's been ordered by now, since we signed off on it. So that's a little bit of an unknown. We certainly have the money to pay for the estimate, and that's all well and good. The DACWA situation, Amelia's been handling the DACWA application, and I believe, Amelia, could you tell us where that is with Common Council and all, if you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, so before it goes to Common Council for the mayor approval, essentially, it has to go through a committee, and that would be the Economic and Community Development Committee, which meets the first Tuesday of every month. So that should be on their February meeting agenda, and then that committee would take it to council, hopefully their first February meeting.
Terrific, thank you. That's been a long haul, and I really appreciate all the work Amelia's done to get this escorted through City Hall. It's really terrific. The only other item I have is Professor Hart's invoice that I sent you all a copy of. It's $3,400. Again, that his work kind of predates me on the commission, but I know Jeff has been involved in getting us an invoice, and it seems reasonable. We had been carrying $5,000 for this service, and it's come in significantly less. Yes, Jeff?
Yeah, I told him we had $5,000, but as part of his work involved reviewing and analyzing all of the DOT's turbidity data that they had collected, which they didn't analyze themselves. So he went through all that data and looked at the spikes in turbidity and related it, believe it or not, to tides and rainfall, and that's what helped us develop. I'm sorry to go into this so much. Our recommendations for turbidity monitoring that we submitted during the public hearing process, and he helped us develop that. And then, of course, the hearing officer said that they were public comments, and since we didn't have a recommendation in the harbor management plan, sort of thank you, but they weren't addressed. There was no requirement for turbidity monitoring that was put into the DEEP permit. But that doesn't mean he didn't do a lot of work, which I didn't quite. But anyway, that was the bulk of it, the analysis of the DOT's turbidity data and what the spikes could be attributed to. But anyway, that's
Lori?
Alan, do we need a motion then to approve payment of that bill?
Yeah.
I mean, it was impressive reading what he had done, and
Yes.
it is unfortunate. But anyway, I would make a motion to approve.
Maybe a second.
On that.
Matt,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll pass. Any opposed?
I might just also say for background, Professor Hart was instrumental in reviewing, preparing the materials we submitted to DOT for the redesign of the I-95 bridge. So he took the tip. No, I don't want to go on, but it's very interesting. He took the analysis of typical highway pollutants and related those to the material in the dredge samples for the dredging project. And we could make a clear case that the material in the sediment in the river that we tested from the dredging project came from the highway bridge. Until then.
There was a positive outcome with that, Jeff,
There was a positive outcome with that.
But that was very fortunate again, but we did that. Because then they eliminated 85% of the wash off of the bridge itself.
Well, anyway, that was part of the analysis.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's just to show you can win some, you lose some, with our state agencies here. It's unbelievable.
So if there's any questions for me about what I've laid out for us and what I sent out. So that's the end of my report, Dennis. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. Next committee is plans and recommendations. Mangles.
Thanks, Dennis. So we had a meeting with Mr. Stowers again. Along with that was Ken Hughes and Pat Rayla Pam Rayla to discuss the slip fee proposal again. At that time, he said that he thought that maybe it was better to pass that through the Department of Economic and Community Development, but that he would look through that. He did look into that, and he stated that after a conversation with the legal department, that it was his understanding that we should be working with Department of Economic and Community Development. And I believe that's Jessica Vanacek, I think. Amelia, can you confirm that?
Sorry, confirm what?
That Jessica Vanacek is the chief.
Yes, she's the
Economic
chief
and
of Economic
Community-
and Community Development. Yes.
Okay, so I did send her an email asking for a meeting, and with the information that I had provided Mr. Stowers, I haven't received a reply from her yet, and I just resent that. So that was around the 10th or so, or the 11th of January. I haven't received any response from her yet. But I'd like to meet with her, give her the information that I proposed to Mr. Stowers as well. Amelia, I can certainly send that to you as well if you like, if you can set up a meeting. I'm not sure.
Sure, that would be great. And I can definitely follow up with Jess too, if you send that to me.
Fantastic, thank you. So we'll wait for a meeting with her. And also regarding the abandoned and derelict vessels, I have been in communication with Deep to get their take on that. And as expected, there are some legal issues that you have to worry about as far as handling somebody else's vessel. And as I reported earlier with a previous meeting with Ken Hughes and Pam Rayla and Mr. Stowers, it was just a communication breakdown. As far as having the vessel tied up to the dock, we have who to contact now. Everything is okay. But on earlier this month, the person that I'm working with is Tim Delgado. And he stated that he is working on training and some tools for us. But it has to go through legal to approve it, and that's Deep's legal, I guess, to approve that. But he hasn't forgotten about the thing that was stated on 1/6 was his email. He said that it will take some time, but we want to protect ourselves and protect anybody who's touching a vessel. So we have to handle it right. Other than that, that's all I have.
Any questions? Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Newsletter and website, Mike Matthews.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. No real updates. Started to really kind of hash out the newsletter. I looked and saw that our previous kind of frequency for putting out the newsletter was twice a year. Given all of the updates that we have today, once we get the messaging down and everybody approves what we were talking about, we could certainly use the newsletter as a way to get that out. I have not been great at using Facebook to let the public know about these meetings. I will start doing that for February. I did have poor Jeff. I sent him a plan for the Oystertown initiative that I've been talking about on previous meetings, which is kind of a pseudo communications, kind of a PR plan. I do think it's under plans though and recommendations. So I sent it over to Jeff. It's just a little 2-page document that describes what I would like us to focus on as far as partnerships in the city and kind of activating Norwalk's Harbor here. So happy to discuss that very briefly if we have a minute, unless you want me to bring it up during next month's meeting.
Hey, Mike, I just had one quick question. I was actually talking with a couple of the Oystermen the other day who are very active on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And I'm assuming it's probably a good interest of ours to, put some of this out for them to also distribute, as it's, harbor management in general, that they're, very much in favor of.
Yeah, that's great. I'm a big Instagram and Twitter guy myself, so happy to take any and all recommendations on that. Now, are you saying particularly around the Oystertown initiative, which I have yet to present to everybody, or just general harbor management news?
Both.
Okay.
Once we finally craft what the final product or push is going to be, I think they'd be very interested. But in the interest of just continuing to push and get more involvement with the harbor management meetings and discussions and stuff like that, I think they'd be great assets to kind of help us with.
I'm happy to do that. So Instagram can be tough to kind of keep up because you do need pictures, right? So doing a screenshot of us here on the that during the meeting might not be super compelling, right? Might be a little bit awkward to post. I'm very much for though, Matt, folks sending a shot of your boat, some oysters, those great, signs that the harbor master, that Bruce had saying, you got to pay up. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that would be fantastic to use on Instagram and to do every now and then. So that's great. I will continue to kind of do that on Facebook as well. I will stay off Twitter. So I think using Instagram and Facebook as the two media would be a good way to go.
We could also help out. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We could also help out the other assets in the community that I just reposting things out of the hour that have to do with the harbor and maritime activity. I think is all good for those followers, as well as anything that the Seaport Association has to put out, that they're trying to sell things or sell tickets to their events. I think that's something we could help them with. Same with the Maritime Aquarium. It's just to sort of echo their material, just to give us some filler and some posting activity.
Absolutely. And I owe it to you all to increase that posting activity here in the new year, as we're already at the tail end of January. So I'll commit to that. And Facebook's, the very best way to do that. Share an article, put in a little quote, and tag our partner agencies here in the city, and then also other harbor management commissions that have Facebook accounts. So I will get rolling with that. In the interest of time, I think you all have probably heard me talk enough here tonight, but I will say that I do have this 2-pager about what I call it's a working name, it's a working document, but the OTI, the Oystertown Initiative, and it's just a plan for us, as I said, to do some of this that you're saying. It's really to kind of bridge the gap between the Oystertown that Norwalk was of the 1800s during the steamship boom, and kind of connect that with the modern day challenges and opportunities that we're facing as a city. And everyone, just to kind of frame your mind, 3 different things we're talking about here. A little ambitious, but I want us to think about an oyster trail, the Norwalk Oyster Trail, in concert with the Shellfish Commission, certainly the Water Quality Commission, as much as you all want to be involved with it. The Office of the Mayor is supportive of this, as is the Economic Development Corporation. The Blooms are on board, and so is the Seaport Foundation. So everybody's kind of shaking their head and saying that this is a good idea. The second thing is a Eat Norwalk Oysters branding campaign, a Norwalk Oyster Trail kind of brand. I think everybody has seen that the Economic Development Corporation has put out some kind of colorful branding, in years past, that tries to connect, the sound of Connecticut and all that tries to connect and bring, a sense of place to Norwalk. I want to do a really great picture using that color scheme. Already talked about it with the Development Corporation, but with an oyster. And the idea, everybody, is to put up kind of geocache markers around the eventual street ends that we open up, Oyster Shell Park, our oyster businesses, and then all of the local, down here in Sono, we have 7 of them on Washington Street, the local restaurants that serve Norwalk oysters. So essentially what you can do is come out of the aquarium, eat some great Norwalk oysters that have that beautiful sticker. It says Harbor Management Commission, and then go and see a street end, right? Kind of be active in the harbor, the Norwalk Harbor. So that is the idea. The final thing is and the mayor's office is all behind this, a Oystertown mayoral proclamation, of course, during the Oyster Festival, just to say, look, we are activating this program. We are trying to bring our past legacy to the future, and we're open to any and all ideas. The final thing I'll say, again, sending this around, please redline it, send me any criticisms, feedback, any sort of partnerships. The real idea for us as a commission is to partner, right? Is to outreach, is to say our commissions that join us, every month, that's an easy one, and appreciate your support. But the Economic Development Partnership, Recreation and Parks, and our local businesses are all would benefit from this. So that is the 50,000 foot look at it.
Jeff?
It would be nice, I think, Mike, if you could also incorporate into your materials the WPA murals in the city hall that really give nice, really beautiful images of the beginning of the oyster industry in Norwalk, both fishing and also I'm assuming you've seen those, but it would be nice to use those somehow and have more people, including people who just don't go into the city hall, but be able to see how beautiful those murals are that depict shellfishing in Norwalk. And then the other thing is at the meeting of shellfish commissions that I attended on Saturday, there was discussion about developing programs to recycle oyster shells from restaurants. And maybe you're familiar with that. And
Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to cut you off. I get excited when we talk about recycling and oysters and murals. This is all, it's everything. This is all included in the plan, actually, aside from the Oyster Recovery Partnership that you mentioned, right? So that's a fantastic program out of the Chesapeake area that is not really open to coming up here. They want to keep it geographically small, but as you know, there is the Billion Oyster Partnership out of New York. There is a big opportunity for us to figure out very easily how to kind of get our own situation here. So I love that. Quickly about the murals. I love the City Hall paintings. I've actually been, I'm never late. I was late for a meeting the other day because I actually was reading, the different descriptions about the murals and stuff. In the plan is an opportunity for us to work with the local arts commission and the Economic Development Corporation to put out a grant for oyster themed murals, street art. So not exactly what you're talking about, which is great and a little bit more formal and professional. But this is kind of vacant and blighted areas that need, maybe in East Norwalk or somewhere else over here in Sono that need a little bit of pizzazz, right? They need a little bit of life. $500, $1,000 up to $3,000 for an oyster mural, right? And to kind of connect that to the harbor. So that's in there as well. Those are the kind of ideas that I love. I do want to be mindful of limited capacity and limited, obviously, funding and other things. But thank you for that.
At the meeting on Saturday, the Sea Grant, there was a presentation, and I believe they said either the University of Connecticut has helped set this up, but there is a nonprofit group that's been set up to try to advance the recycling of oyster shells in different towns. And the Fairfield Shellfish Commission has set up a program. But anyway, that's something to talk about later. But they're trying to do that in Connecticut, and there is a nonprofit group, as I understood, that's been set up to help with this.
Well, that's excellent. Anytime we can, kind of piggyback off of our Sea Grant foundation or our Sea Grant entity in Connecticut is fantastic. Something for your mind, Jeff, here is I'm a little pie in the sky with some of these ideas, and the idea is for us to be a model for a larger Connecticut oyster trail. I get really upset when I go to my home state of the Commonwealth of Virginia and they have an oyster trail, and it is nothing like we could much easier put together. Nothing against Rhode Island. I love Rhode Island. They have an oyster wine trail. We can do it. We can do it better. So if this all works out, we have the Norwalk Oyster Trail here in Oystertown, USA. Deep Connecticut, Yukon, somebody else decides that out east they would like to connect to us somehow. So
I think that was an excellent, that's going to be my next statement, Mike, because I thought that was an excellent suggestion because, I should say Connecticut has a wine trail and it certainly would parallel what we might want to do with the oysters, but we have set up the paradigm for that and would certainly act as a flagship for what we need to produce in the state. So I think dovetailing with other communities as Stratford, certainly Stanford, it's that'd be an excellent idea. But I really like your idea.
That's it right there. That's it. And that's what Rhode Island has done really well. Is they are trying to get Rhode Island wine, kind of moving. More credit to them. That's an uphill battle. I myself am an IPA guy, and we do a really good job on the coast of Connecticut and throughout Connecticut putting out good IPAs, and nothing goes, this is my opinion, nothing goes better with a hazy IPA than a Norwalk oyster, right? That's a great experience. That also has people saying, who set this up? It is all centered around our Norwalk Harbor. Again, it activates us in a way that is kind of a little bit different, I think.
That's what I'm saying. Certainly we act as a flagship for future motivation. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Thank
send
you.
some materials to you, Mike, after the meeting later tonight that might be of interest. And I'll get some more background and information on that recycling program. It's very good.
Yeah, who was that young lady, Jeff, that was, I think it was, she gave that presentation on
I
that?
don't know what's happened to her, but she was not involved in this presentation on Saturday.
wasn't,
with
okay.
this- the Yukon supported group.
Because I thought she was taking the leadership role on that, but I think maybe that was what
I
Mike had
don't know.
mentioned. That was down in where, in South Carolina? Where was that?
Oh, yeah, but I believe she moved on to someplace else with a
Okay.
job, but I'm not sure.
All right.
But the other thing is this, the Long Island Sound Future Fund grant program, I believe is accepting applications in the spring. And that might be a source of funds to help us develop public informational materials on the Oyster Trail. Several years ago, the city of Norwich got a grant to develop a signage and also a pamphlet that's on the website now for a canoe and kayak trail on the Thames River and the other two rivers up in Norwich. And that was a local program, but it got funding from this Long Island Sound Futures Fund. So we might want to keep an eye out for that.
Okay, Long Island, I'm taking notes of that right now. All of that is fantastic. No surprise there out of you, Jeff. I appreciate it. And as I send this document out, feel free to redline it,
Thank
add
you.
resources, and
Yeah.
I will reach out, see if we can get started. Joe, I know you've been waiting here patiently.
Yeah, two thoughts, Mike.
Mike, it
Um,
sounds great. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Joe,
Very good report.
Sorry.
Two thoughts, Mike. Back in the late 90s, most of you guys weren't around on the Harbor Commission, but some of you were. We're forgetting that the oyster almost died out. MSX and Dermo hit and had a major impact on oyster populations. And if it wasn't for the lowly clam, our industry would have been dead absolutely completely. The other thing I want to toss out, Mike, is not everybody likes oysters. But people who don't like oysters love clams. See, John's raising, I'm there. I'll eat clams all day long, but not oysters. And it's something you may
Oh,
want to.
Jeff, Joe, we like oysters, especially when they brought them to the Shellfish Commission, brought them to our usual past Christmas parties that we had.
Yeah. You may want to broaden it to the Shellfish Trail. And that would include the clams and the oysters, because that might attract more people who are interested. If it's just oysters, you won't get as large a population as you think you'd get.
Yeah, Joe, look, I appreciate that feedback. That's not the first time I've heard that. We are Oyster Town, right? It's that is our nickname for Norwalk, which you don't see anywhere. To your point, I am very familiar. No, I wasn't here in the 90s. I'm very familiar with the ecological history of the oyster in Long Island Sound. And that is kind of the beauty of the story. It is not all a success story. It is, as I say, in the document, it is a boom and bust industry for a long time. And I think there's something to be learned from that as well. So I don't want you to think that this is simply just a, great glamorous kind of, here's the oyster, it's the best thing ever. There are a lot of folks who aren't going to care for oysters. Quite frankly, every time I go out and have oysters, somebody looks at me like, oh, how can you do that? But so open to suggestions. I will tell you that I don't personally love the ring of no offense to our Shellfish Commission folks, of Shellfish Town USA or Shellfish Trail. I'm very open to it though, because I understand that it does broaden our horizons and our potential kind of popularity. So thank you for that.
I agree with you, Mike, in a way, but from my own perspective, shellfish incorporates certainly crabs, lobsters, etc. But oysters perhaps have a little bit more classy approach. I don't know, I'd imagine, but
But
like,
in
like
the
not
18
like Joe's point, not everyone likes oysters, but I do.
in the 1800s, when the laws were passed that still are in effect today concerning shellfishing, the precursor to the current Shellfish Commission was called the Oyster Ground Committee, the Norwalk Oyster Ground Committee. Amelia, might I be able to share my screen if people would bear with me just for a couple of minutes? I don't know, can you see that this, Mike, this is one of the interpretive panels that we prepared about 10 years ago, using the part of one of the murals in the city hall. And, down in the lower corner is one of the shell piles that that was found along Water Street. But
Along with our celebrated name, the Jewel of Long Island Sound.
well, you know where that came from. That was Jack Callahan's idea. But anyway, this is an example of the sort of information I think that we could present and project to the public that would be of, I think, of value. Again, not just, well, anyway, thank you. I'll stop there.
No, that's great. And as just the final thing I'll say, as I'm talking to you all here, I got a text that said, Clam Town, right? So I'm open for it. That's what's great about this is let's talk about it. The idea is to activate the harbor. The idea is for us to partner actively with other organizations. And either way, whatever it's called, I think it is great. A final thing is just the kind of aura, I don't know, the position that oysters have, I think, in culture and in our society is, I won't say it's elevated over the clam, but it is certainly, you have this kind of passion around oysters, right? And it's kind of more of an artsy, it's more of a cultural kind of thing, which is what I was going for, but very happy to enjoy, to bring crabs, to bring anything else into it here. So thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Joe, you're still on.
Thank you. You want me to cover the Water Quality Committee, Dennis, now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. At our last meeting, we had several discussions. The first one, Diane Larcello and I attended the webinar that was on PFAS that was hosted by DEEP as well as the State Health Department. And basically they covered what the state was aware of, and something that has not come up on the horizon is fire departments. Apparently their turnout gear contains PFAS, and it might mean fire departments having to replace turnout gear as well as other equipment on their fire trucks, as well as the areas that contain the foam that had PFAS have to be somehow or other cleaned out safely, and the PFAS foam gotten rid of in some type of sanitary landfill. It was interesting to hear that. We also had concern at that point, and I had talked to people in the state shellfish department. And again, Mike, this goes to you. And it might be something we have to hold our breath on. Shellfish have not been tested for PFAS. The State Department of Shellfish Commission hasn't decided to have it tested. And I asked why, and they said, we have no reason, we just haven't started testing it. And especially in communities where foam has been used in the past, industrial agents, oils and stuff like that. Like I would imagine the area around New London, Bridgeport, places like that could have high levels of PFAS in shellfish. And that could put a damper on a lot of things, unfortunately. And yet it's something we'd like to know more about. Mr. Bardish said it after that there would be an annual gathering of Shellfish Commissioners on the 21st. He did not attend, and I don't know of anybody that did attend from the Shellfish Commission. And the Department of Health said the reservoir was still 4.5 inches below normal. So we're down on that. And under old business, what we started to go over was the recommendations for next year that we came up with from all the meetings we had in 2022. And if you'd like a draft of that, I could get it out to all of you and you can react to it. But once we have our meeting on the 2nd, we will at that point, once we agree to it, we'll send it out to councilmen and so forth. Some of it does pertain to the Harbor Commission, such as finances for doing some testing and stuff like that. But also, it's something that we can use to move forward with. Dick pointed out that he found mitten crabs in the Housatonic that were gravid. That's unusual because mostly crabs become gravid in the summertime. So that means that invasive crab could become very easily adaptable to the Norwalk River. And it is a freshwater, salt-tolerant crab that could move up the Norwalk River. So we could be seeing that coming into the Norwalk Harbor. And then under public comments, one of the comments we had was from Linnell Jones, and she mentioned a newspaper article using DNA testing to identify the source pollution at Sasko Brook. And Jeff mentioned that earlier. And I pointed out to her that it has not been an approved method specifically with the EPA and DEEP. The Fairfield Commission that looked at it and came up with basically no definitive answer. And there's a lot of complications with doing DNA testing. It's something that we started to look into probably 15 years ago, if not more, to try and trace where the bacteria are coming from in the different rivers. So that's something we have to look forward to in the future. That's it. Any questions?
Joe, concerning the PFAS, there was an article today. In fact, I think it was Simply orange juice. Coca-Cola makes that. There's toxic levels of PFAS found in that.
It's an orange something or other drink.
Or
Yes.
simply orange, I think it
Yes.
is. It's orange juice. There's a class action lawsuit regarding that. But
Yeah, the point here, and I'm a DDT generation person. And unfortunately, this is a residual toxin. So once you get it in your system, it slowly builds up and slowly builds up and slowly builds up. So anybody that is born in Norwalk over a period of time and stays in Norwalk over a period of time and keeps drinking the water, you're going to build it up and you're going to build it up and build it up. And right now I'm very sensitive to this because I have 2 friends that are dying from cancer. And could this have been the cause? We don't know. We don't know. And there's a high propensity of people who are getting cancer. And part of it's age, but part of it could be our water. We don't know. So it's something for us not to blow off. Otherwise, we could end up being another Detroit with their lead.
Joe, explain again, PFAS is a product of much of the coating on our frying pans and pots and pans. Is that
It's also found in foam, firefighting foam.
Right.
When I started looking into this, I said, well, especially the airports are the ones that raise the red flag on this. I said, well, my God, how many airports do we have here in Connecticut?
Well-
There's over 60.
I know, but in addition to that, Joe, as far as our daily use. and
Yeah,
Exposure to PFAS. You know,
yeah,
everybody uses Teflon coated, pans,
yes,
et cetera. So I don't know the extent of bleaching. They're all endocrine disruptors. You know, I
yes,
totally agree with you on that. But the question becomes, is that when you take one particular source and add another, I certainly you get accumulation. So the overall exposure, you can't say it's only water exposure. You know, it's the accumulation of not just simply PFAS,
correct.
but there's also other fire retardants that are
Yep.
present in our curtain commercial. They're all brominated biphenyls that are present in our curtains. All what we ask for, we get it. You don't want your clothes to catch on fire, and a lot of the material is also present in that. The
It's
soap
also,
material, curtains, etc. Well, it's everywhere, Jeff, Joe.
Yeah.
So it's a cumulative poison, and I agree with you on that. So I mean, we just can't put again fire retardant material is and the fire department and foam material as the only culprit. So it's
they actually found it in treatment for clothing,
yes.
not just as a fire retardant, for
Right.
waterproofing, keeping
Yeah.
it nice.
Well, my response to that is be careful what you ask for because you get it. You know,
Well,
people wanted this.
yeah, oh, yeah,
People
yeah,
want.
but now we have to deal with it.
Now we have to deal with it. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Mike has a question.
So,
Got his
Mike,
hand up.
you're
He
muted.
had
Mike.
his hand up.
Apologies, you'd think I'd get that by now. Yeah, thanks, Joe. So this is, I think, the second or third meeting where you brought this up, and PFAS, I think, is prevalent in 83% of American waterways, as the latest EPA study indicates. I know that the Cape Fear River, it's a huge issue. The Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic, it's a huge issue. Is there something that we should take action on here? Is that what we're discussing? Is this something that your commission has made one of your top priorities? And then, sorry to pile on another question, is there something that makes the Norwalk River and the Norwalk Harbor stand out as far as PFAS is concerned in the region?
Well, it's definitely in the Norwalk River's water, and it's in our drinking water. The two water supply companies have admitted that there's PFAS in it. The other aspect with that is the city has not done much to alert residents. And in conjunction with that, as soon as I learned about it, one of the things that I found can make it not disappear, but greatly lower itself in our water supply is activated charcoal. And ironically, I have a water filter on our kitchen sink that has activated charcoal in it. If you have, I think it's a Brita water filter, activated charcoal.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of products out there that can help reduce the consumption of this.
Yeah, see the question too, Mike, you mentioned it being 86% of the water. Yes, it's present there. The question is what's the concentration? And that's what's most important, because again, you take PFAS plus another compound, plus another compound, plus another compound. That's the problem. It's not just one. It's a combination of what is contained in the water supply. So just putting an alarmist aspect on just PFAS is very short-sighted, but PFAS is
I want to be clear. I was in no way being alarmist about it here. I just want to say my question again.
With a sensitive enough treatment, you can say, well, there's also probably 80% of our water supply contains lead. To what extent? That's the point.
To answer your question, one of the things we're making as one of the high recommendations is that the city look into that, the health department as well as the water companies, and see if we can reduce what's there.
And I'm really not trying to belabor this. Apologies for cutting you off, Joe, but the EPA just released a strategic roadmap for communities that are particularly vulnerable, that have high levels of PFAS concentrations. Here's my thing. I don't see us as part of that strategic roadmap. I do not have the scientific, or to be honest with you, policy exposure to PFAS under the EPA or here in Connecticut. I was just asking if that is something that we are going to pursue, a action for mitigating PFAS or further highlighting it. I don't know if necessarily that is done at the city level.
It's not yet. It's not yet, and we're hoping to motivate it to get done at the city level. Okay, and I have one more thing I want to add before I sign off here. Save the Sound. Dennis, did you send that out? I sent you a note about Save the Sound coming on
Yes, it was sent out.
February 2nd, and they're going to help explain why we received the failing grade in part of the harbor. So they will be here. Peter Linderoth is the head of their water quality testing group, and he will be in attendance for that Zoom meeting. So you're all invited. If you want to attend, let Bill Mooney know. And he can, if you want to be a participant, if you just want to log on, you can just log on. Any other questions?
Can
Okay,
you share the login information so we're able to know where to go for that?
say that again, Alan.
Can you share the invite to the meeting so we know how to log on to the meeting?
I have to get that from Bill or from Amelia. Okay, that's it, Dennis.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have anybody, any public comments from anyone? Amelia, I think we have 4 people. I don't know if they're still with us.
Yep, 4 people. We have 1 hand raised, and then we did also have the written public comment that I emailed to you earlier in regard to the 2 Nathan Hale application. And I will let Linnell speak now for public comment.
I have some new business too, but I'm not going to cut off the public people, but before we adjourn.
Okay, thank you. My name is Linnell Jones. I've questioned Lori Jones's conflicts of interest before, and tonight I am again questioning why Lori Jones, a close neighbor to 2 Nathan Hale Drive, and president of Wilson Point, did not either abstain or recuse herself from the vote about 2 Nathan Hale. Now, I understand the vote will not change, but I believe it's the principle. And I do want to note that Mr. McDonald did abstain from a vote where he knew the applicant. As much as Land Tech downplayed it, there were not 1, but 2 outstanding violations at 2 Nathan Hale Drive. One, where the dock was approved, they did something else. And the other, they extended the seawall when the tidal wetlands were filled between 2 and 2.5 Nathan Hale. This is not the first Wilson Point dock violation. Remember, the vice president of Wilson Point dock had no permit. And I'm sure this will not be the last. As long as Wilson Point residents believe what the Wilson Point board is telling them, that no permit was required for the work done on Nathan Hale Drive in the coastal flood zone and the tidal and inland wetlands, people are going to believe that they do not need to go to the city or the state, share plans, or have any review. Again, I understand the vote will not change. It's the principle. And thank you very much. I'm excited about Oyster Town.
Thank you, Linnell. Amelia, do we have someone else?
It does not look like anyone else has their hand raised. If anyone from the public does want to speak, there's a raise your hand function at the very bottom of your screen. But it looks like that's it.
Okay, thank you. We have approval of minutes of December 21st,
Oh,
2000.
sorry, Dennis, we just got 1 hand raised. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh. Sorry.
All right.
Hi, my name is Mitch Pillay. I'm the past president of Wilson Point. 2 things that are very worthy of note in the comments just recently made. One is that there were no tidal wetlands filled. It was reviewed by DEEP. No citations were offered. So we really don't know what she's talking about. Secondly, and also very worthy of note, is the other dock that Ms. Jones referred to has been in existence for decades, to my understanding, and was there at the time the person bought the house. So, you know, it's very easy for people that have an agenda or a bone to pick with you know, their neighbors to create issues and to make different statements. But quite frankly, they're misleading and not very honest. So I just want to be clear about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, did you have something to bring up?
Yeah, well, I wanted to thank Amelia for sending out the Resilient Norwalk preliminary document there. I did notice that the Harbor Commission was left off the advisory committee. The Conservation Commission is on there, the Planning and Zoning Commission on there. There was another commission that was on there, but I think that the Harbor Commission, especially because this has a lot to do with, with the harbor and flooding and et cetera. And all of it has to do with, areas adjacent to the harbor where we review plans of what's going to happen to all these areas, that the Harbor Commission should be represented on the advisory committee.
We're going to have first whack at that, Chris, for review.
We're not on the advisory committee, so we
No.
get it when the public gets it.
Yeah. But we
So
will
that's the public.
access to that, review it.
What's that?
We will be able to review that.
I think we should be, I'm making a motion that we request to be on the advisory committee. We have a representative on the advisory committee. Do we have a
Second.
do we have a second?
Yep. Second.
All right, then let's discuss it then. Somebody,
Chris, I think that's a good idea and an oversight. And maybe you saw some of the photographs, the storm right before Christmas and what Water Street looked like. The police department had some very, very good photographs of that. And so that the whole issue of coastal resiliency and it's the involvement of the Connecticut Coastal Management Program and also the Harbor Management Plan, the promoting. We didn't call it resiliency. We talked about floodplain management and avoiding, the flood hazard areas and reducing vulnerability. But I think that the Harbor Commission has an important role, and so does the Harbor Management Plan,
right.
to be part of that work.
Well, that was our special request of having that incorporated.
Yeah, but it's not just it's two parts of it. It's to be a participant in the formulation of the plan and the recommendations. And then there's also, to the extent that any of those recommendations get adopted by or subject to adoption by the planning or zoning or conservation, then the commission has to review those before they can be adopted.
Well, Chris, you attended that meeting. I thought it was.
I did not attend it. No, I reviewed, Amelia sent out the
I thought it was
slideshow
very
from
interesting and very well put together. And
Well,
again, what was very interesting were the public comments afterwards with regard to moving forward with that. And that one individual had called for, why are they moving ahead with the waterfront project without actually reviewing what is being presented at this particular resiliency conference, which I thought was an excellent point to be made. Why are they moving forward with building and construction when they haven't even got all the information as far as what is.
But
one of my critiques of the information they sent out was that they didn't include any of the new structures in it. The mapping, those roads were regraded, especially Raymond Street, I think it is, was regraded to be an egress path, to be an egress road. It doesn't show any of the new structures. It still shows all the structures of Connecticut Village. They did a lot of regrading on Day Street and Raymond Street and all to make it more for egress paths and that and such. So, and if this passes, I will be the first one to volunteer to be on be the representative to the advisory committee. I think a lot of it is stormwater management. That's a whole aspect of it. So I think my background, both with some flood not prevention, but flood prevention work that I did at the Holland Tunnel, as well as my background as a civil engineer. And it's an engineering company that I'm familiar with. that is doing AECom is doing the study. So, and I think we should be part of the editing team, not part of the critic team at this point. I think your ideas carry a lot more weight before it, before a draft has been printed and before the final thing.
No, I agree with you on that, Chris. Absolutely.
Jeff, do you have something to say?
Just one other thing, it's interesting because at the same time as the city is doing that study, you know that in March that we anticipate that there will be a action to adopt the amendment to the POCD. And that amendment is simply to, I guess, endorse or support the recommendations of the waterfront zoning study, the waterfront industrial study. And as you know, a key area that's looked at in that study, and perhaps the most significant area, is the Water Street area.
Yep.
And what's called for in terms of future redevelopment opportunities along that property.
Again,
It's a very interesting, whatever you call it, on one hand and on the other hand, but clearly those images from the police department of that pre-Christmas storm show that Water Street was impassable and that there was significant water on all of those properties.
That's what the comment was about. The final remarks, several remarks that were made, is why are they moving forward with that before they actually go to school and excuse me, go to school and the information that they're gathering right now. They're spending thousands of dollars on this review, and they still want to move forward without listening to the data or responding to the data that they finally get, and all the data are not there. Anyway,
That's a very good point, I think, that was made.
There's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, Chris, you made a motion. There was a second. You want to explain your motion or say it again, please?
Sure, I'll restate it for the record, that we request from planning and zoning to have a Harbor Commission member on the advisory committee for the Resilient South Norwalk study.
Okay, is there any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Any noes? Extensions? Motion carries. Thank you.
But who's going to do that? Is that Amelia or?
Yeah, I can reach out to Michelle in our office who used to work with you guys on the Harbor Commission. She did Resilient. So no, I actually just texted her already. So if not, I'll just talk to her in the office tomorrow and see how we can get that done.
Great. Thank you, Amelia.
And I volunteer to be the rep if just for the record.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll certainly second that. Sir.
Great, thanks, John.
Moving along, I hope. Approval of the minutes of December 21st, 2022. Does anybody have any comments that they didn't give to John?
No, I updated all the comments that were sent down to me.
Okay.
It's approved, I'll just have it posted at our website.
All right, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second that. Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Raise your-
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. John, I understand at the end of the meeting, or should we adjourn?
No, I'd like to just sort of just state what we have because we need names from the floor. As everyone knows, we have on our next commission meeting, we have election of our officers of the Harbor Management Commission. We have chair, vice chair, and secretary. I've received nominations, I should say, for filling those positions, and I wanted to mention those now because we also have to call for any additional names from the floor as part of our bylaws. So far, what I've acquired are 2 names for chair. We have Mr. Alan Kibbe and Chris McDonald, whose names have been nominated for nomination for chair. And we have for vice chair, we have 3 names that have been nominated. Again, in keeping with our paradigm that we've always followed, is that we also have as vice chair, we have Alan Kibbe, Chris McDonald, and also Jeff Mangel's name for vice chair. And then we have 2 names that have been offered for secretary. and that was Miss Lori Jones and then Mr. John Crespo. So without due is to have, and if I'd like to take some names, if anyone has any names they want to offer or add to that list, and then I'll submit that to Amelia, that list, and she will send out a ballot where it'll be a closed ballot where you could send her the response to that email that she has with your designated person for each one of those positions. Anyone have any
Questions?
questions or additions to that? Any other?
John?
John Pinto should be, I'd like to put his name forward as a chair.
Well, no, I thank you very much, John, for that, but I certainly would have, as far as devote the much time that I could do for doing that, I wouldn't be able to serve adequately in that position, and for the responsibility that I have right now as far as my work concerned, but I
Yep.
really appreciate that. I have to decline on that nomination.
Any other nominations from the commission? Do we need to close the nominations, John?
No, well, I'll, if not hearing any, we'll call that to a close. And I will submit, I think Amelia does have those names that I submitted to her. And she'll get a ballot out to each one by email, individual by email, and just send her your nomination, your choice to her. And then she'll send that to me and we'll make that announcement during the February meeting. And it's then that the officers will take their position.
Any questions further?
Nope.
I'll take a motion to adjourn. Matt, second, Chris, I'm sure we're all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Good meeting tonight, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Take
all.
care, everybody.
Have a great night.
Yep.